for me, one of the major ones is being so obsessed about making mistakes. Because I think as a result, we end up saying very little of what we wanted to say in the first place. For me, one of the second things is we tend to focus too much on the communication aspect. Yet, I can communicate with you remarkably well and have with you a very poor relationship. I'm sure you can relate to that. I can also communicate with you poorly and have with you a wonderful relationship. And I think what we ought to focus on much more is less on the way we communicate and much more in the way we relate to each other. Because at the end of the day, the results that we produce together in the context of our conversations, whether they're management conversations or sales conversations, are not so much linked to how well I communicate. They're very much linked to how I make you feel about the fact of doing it with me, because of the way I behave with you in general. Do you want to listen to what I have to say? Do you trust me when I say it? These are the things I think we should operate on or focus on much more. And one last thing is, very often we think, if I have to speak to my client, I'm going to speak in this way. If I have to speak to my manager, I'm going to speak in this way. If I want to speak to my mother-in-law, I have to speak in this way. But you know what? Ask the three of them how they wanted to be spoken to. They would say exactly the same thing, which chances are is the same thing as what you would say if you were asked the question. And what makes you likable? What makes you impactful? What makes you influent? What makes you clear? What makes you respected? Doesn't really change depending on who you're speaking to. At the end of the day, you're speaking to a human being. And what changes really is the topic of the conversation. But what will impact the result, what will impact how people feel about the fact of doing it with you, is at the end of the day, the way you behave with them. It doesn't make a difference who they are.